I smoothed the silk blouse over my shoulders, the fabric catching the morning sunlight streaming through my office window. The city below buzzed like a living thing, but up here, in my own carefully curated space, the chaos felt distant. My phone vibrated on the glass desk, and for a moment, I hesitated. Who would be calling me this early? The screen blinked with a name I hadn't expected, Harper and Company, the same company that had refused my services years ago, insisting they could manage on their own. My thumb hovered over the green button. I could feel the irony curling in my chest, warm and satisfying, but I didn't let it show. I answered, keeping my tone calm, professional. Samantha Hayes speaking. A frantic voice on the other end spilled out apologies and panic. They couldn't find anyone competent, no one who could handle what they needed. Apparently, the world suddenly realized that the one they dismissed was the one they actually needed. I sank back into my leather chair, letting the absurdity of it wash over me. My heart, which used to tighten in the face of rejection, now beat steady, with quiet triumph. I could almost hear the echo of my younger self, trembling and unheard, and I allowed a small smile. This was the moment when past hurt met present power. I remember the sting vividly, even now. Back then, I was just Samantha, eager and hopeful, fresh out of college with a degree in event management and dreams bigger than my tiny apartment. Harper and Company, the very company that had just called, had been my first big pitch. I walked into their glass-walled office, portfolio in hand, heart hammering with excitement and nerves. Honestly, Samantha, the senior manager had said, flipping through my designs with an almost painful lack of interest, we don't need your services. We have someone else. Maybe in the future. Future. The word had felt like a slap. My hands shook as I clutched my folder, trying not to let tears blur my vision. I nodded, forcing a smile, the lump in my throat swallowing my voice whole. I left that office feeling smaller than I had when I walked in, my dreams suddenly heavy, like they were made of lead. I walked home that day, clutching the small silver locket my grandmother had given me, the one with a tiny engraving that read, "Strength is born in the quiet moments no one sees." She'd handed it to me during a late-night call, her voice steady. "They may refuse you now, Sam, but that doesn't mean your time won't come. Build quietly. Build smart. Build so they'll have no choice but to notice." I remember pressing it to my chest, feeling a strange warmth and resolve. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, notebook open, mapping out every possibility. I refused to be dependent, refused to let someone else's narrow vision define my worth. I promised myself, if they wouldn't see my talent, I'd make sure the world eventually would. And so, the seed was planted. I began to work in silence, taking small freelance projects, learning from mistakes, watching others succeed, and wondering why I hadn't yet. It hurt, yes, but there was a quiet thrill in knowing that one day I'd return, not with anger, but with undeniable proof. I had no idea then how long it would take, but I did know one thing: I would never beg for the recognition I deserved. I started small. Apartment living room turned office, laptops and notebooks scattered like my thoughts, and evenings that blurred into nights filled with research, emails, and endless brainstorming. I found a mentor, Clara Donovan, a seasoned event planner who ran a boutique agency downtown. She saw something in me that Harper and Company hadn't: a spark, a meticulous eye, and the stubborn determination that wouldn't quit. "Sam," she said one evening as we reviewed my first client's budget, "you're not just planning events. You're creating experiences. Never settle for someone telling you no. Let them underestimate you. It works in your favor." Her words stuck. I started taking on small gigs: birthday parties, corporate meetings, fundraisers. Every event was a test, every client a teacher. There were nights I cried at my kitchen table, wondering if I was enough, if my dream would ever pay more than just rent. I lost count of the failed proposals, the clients who never called back, the nights I doubted myself. But little victories kept me going. The first time I landed a corporate client willing to pay full rate, I stayed up until 2 a.m., perfecting every detail of the event. The first profit I saved into my account felt like a small triumph, proof that my choices were paying off. By the time I moved into my own tiny studio, I had built not just a portfolio, but a reputation. And I kept it quiet. No social media posts about my growing business, no calls to my family detailing my successes. I wanted them to see me on my terms, not theirs. Harper and Company didn't know that the freelancer they had dismissed was now quietly managing events for some of the city's top clients. I expanded slowly, meticulously, learning every aspect of the business, from marketing to budgeting to negotiating contracts. Long nights were balanced with Clara's guidance, coffee-fueled mornings, and the occasional moment of awe at how far I'd come. Each small win compounded, turning my tiny operation into a boutique agency that rivaled the very companies that had once scoffed at me. And yet, every time I walked past that silver locket, I remembered my grandmother's words. Strength is born in quiet moments no one sees. My growth was my own, private, intentional, unstoppable. I was ready. Not for revenge, not for confrontation, but for acknowledgement. The world had underestimated me before, and now it would have no choice. When Harper and Company arrived, I greeted them with a calm smile, the kind that disarmed before it demanded attention. The same office that once turned me away now belonged to me. Not a corporate giant, but a boutique haven of elegance and precision. Expensive artwork lined the walls, warm wood furniture gleamed under soft lighting, and a delicate arrangement of orchids sat on my desk, their subtle fragrance filling the room. Every detail whispered success, taste, and deliberate intention. They stepped in, eyes wide, taking in every element, as if they were seeing a mirage. I offered coffee, though I knew they didn't deserve the courtesy. They hadn't appreciated me once, after all. Still, I poured, keeping my hand steady, hiding the thrill that surged within. "Ms. Hayes," one of them began, voice hesitant, almost apologetic. I held up a hand. "Call me Samantha. You've called for my services, yes?" My voice was smooth, unshakable, carrying the weight of years they had dismissed. Their eyes flickered with confusion. We were hoping you could handle the upcoming corporate gala. We've tried others, but..." I leaned back, fingers clasped in front of me, letting the silence stretch. It wasn't rudeness. It was letting them realize the full extent of the world they had ignored. I let them see it. The awards lining my shelves, glowing testimonials on my digital portfolios, contracts with companies they'd never imagined reaching out to a freelancer like me. "I handle only a select few clients," I said finally, voice calm but sharp. "And I charge rates commensurate with my expertise. The truth is, the same services you dismissed years ago are now among the most sought after in the city. I am fully booked for the next 6 months." They exchanged glances, disbelief shadowing their faces. One of the senior managers swallowed hard, voice cracking slightly. "We didn't realize we thought we could find someone else." I smiled gently, letting the satisfaction settle like a warm weight in my chest. "You did. But now you see the problem. The expertise you refused is no longer negotiable. I set my terms, and yes, if you want my services, you'll meet them." The room fell silent. Their pride, their previous dismissals, had collided with the reality they could no longer ignore. I had transformed from the timid, eager young woman they underestimated into someone indispensable, someone who commanded respect not with threats, but with proof of her worth. And in that quiet moment, I realized that this confrontation was not about revenge. It was about recognition, about reclaiming what they once denied me. And the irony, sweet and satisfying, was that they now couldn't afford anyone else who could deliver the excellence they sought. I stood behind my desk, arms crossed lightly, watching the group fidget as they realized the new balance of power. I could feel their desperation, but it wasn't satisfying. It was instructive. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let arrogance or guilt dictate this moment. I had the upper hand, and I intended to use it wisely. "You want my services," I began, voice firm but calm. "Then there are conditions. I don't work with people who undervalue talent, who treat others as replaceable, or who assume competence is optional. I let my words hang, letting the weight settle over them. The senior manager swallowed. We understand. We're willing to. I raised a finger. Not just willingness. Action. You will follow my guidelines, respect the process, and stop assuming shortcuts will work. If you want me to handle your gala, here's what it entails. Full transparency with your teams, commitment to deadlines, and zero tolerance for micromanagement. These are not requests, they're prerequisites for collaboration. Their faces reflected the reality. They had no choice. They wanted the excellence they had once rejected. Now they would have to earn it. I glanced at the others, softening my tone slightly. And yes, there's more. I expect accountability, not excuses. Toxic habits or dismissive attitudes towards skilled professionals will not be tolerated. If you want my expertise, you must also respect the people who make it possible. A younger assistant muttered, We never realized. I know, I said, leaning forward slightly.
You didn't see me then.
But now you do. Consider this an opportunity not just for your company, but for yourselves. Change the habits that cost you quality. Learn what it means to value excellence. It's not just my terms, it's a lesson in growth. I watched as the tension shifted. Where there had been arrogance, there was now humility. Where there had been dismissal, there was now recognition. And as much as they needed me, I understood that this moment was also about reshaping them, guiding them to respect what had once been invisible to them. The silver locket at my neck warmed slightly under my blouse. My grandmother's words echoed, Strength is born in the quiet moments no one sees. This wasn't about punishment. It was about establishing worth, mine, theirs, and the worth of all the talented people they had once ignored. I allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. The balance had shifted. The tables had turned. And for the first time in a long while, I felt not just satisfaction, but empowerment. Weeks passed after that meeting, and slowly, the transformation began. Harper and Company followed my guidelines, embraced my terms, and started to operate differently. I received updates from my team, projects ran smoother, deadlines were met, and, most importantly, the company began to respect the value of true expertise. I watched from my office, sunlight spilling across my desk, coffee steaming in my hand, feeling a quiet pride. This was not revenge. It was growth, mine and theirs. I remembered the tremor in my hands the first time I had pitched to them, the lump in my throat when they dismissed me. That fear had been real, but it had also been temporary. I had endured it, grown through it, and emerged stronger than I could have imagined. The silver locket rested against my chest as I reflected. My grandmother's words, once whispered in the quiet of my kitchen, had carried me through sleepless nights and uncertain days. Strength is born in the quiet moments no one sees. I smiled, thinking about the journey. The small gigs that seemed insignificant, the mentors who believed when no one else did, the nights of doubt and perseverance. Now, I was the woman I had always hoped to be. Independent, respected, and unshakable. And I realized something even more important. Those relationships I valued, the ones built on trust, collaboration, and respect, were the only ones worth keeping. People who truly mattered had noticed, not because I demanded it, but because I earned it. The phone rang again, another client, another opportunity. I answered with the same calm, confident voice that had carried me this far. I could feel the pulse of my journey in every word, the lessons etched into my tone. I paused for a moment, looking out the window at the city sprawling beneath me, each building a reminder of what could be built with perseverance, vision, and self-respect. I knew that the path forward would always have challenges, but now I had something far stronger than fear, certainty in my worth, in my abilities, and in the strength I had cultivated over the years. And as I turned back to my desk, my hands steady and my heart full, I whispered softly, almost to myself. They may have refused me once, but now, they can't afford anyone else.